When you combine the dream come true of being a dad with the dream to be of entrepreneurship, you're presented with a world of possibilities along with a world of challenges. Join Joel Lewis as he interviews successful entrepreneur dads sharing how they made it work from the start. This is Startup Dad HQ.
Hey, welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters, where we're exploring the intersection between fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and life. And today's Startup Dads, I'm really excited to have on the show, Jim Adams. So Jim and his wife have celebrated 30 years. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary in 2015. Married right out of college and basically clueless, they started on a quest to grow their own marriage. And that journey led them to the desire to strengthen marriages all across the country. Co-founders of the Family Matters First Inc., Family Matters in the Workplace, and the Family Matters First podcast, which is a 5-day-a-week show where Jim and Teresa discuss all things marriage and family related. And that's a number 2 ranked in iTunes new and noteworthy podcast. So definitely one that you want to check out. Jim, I'm really excited to have you on the show. We've tried to connect in the past and we've had some technical difficulties. I'm glad that we were able to get you back onto the show today to talk about your journey, your extensive entrepreneur journey, as well as, of course, we'll be talking about family. So welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters. Really happy to have you on.
Hey, Joel, thank you so much. Yeah, we have had a bit of an issue trying to connect, but I'm glad we're finally talking.
Yes. So I told the audience a little bit about you. Please take a second, share a little bit more about what you have going on right now and what's really exciting you about your business currently.
Well, the thing is, as it relates to your show, our business is basically really what your show's about. I mean, obviously we talk about the whole family, but in terms of just a little bit of my history, you mentioned Teresa and I just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. We have 4 children. Our children are spread across 2 or 3 different time zones. Mm-hmm. But Teresa and I like to say we are professional married people, and we are marriage professionals. So we've always just been really passionate about a couple of things. Starting businesses and our family. And Joel, I can remember the first business we opened. Teresa was a stay-at-home mom for most of our marriage until the children got older. Then she went, out into the workplace full-time. But every business that we started, Teresa was an integral part. Okay, so what have we done? We've had a vending machine company. We've had a hair salon. We've had a cell phone and paging store. I actually had 3 of them. We've done a number of things. We've had some tremendous successes and tremendous failures, as I'm sure we're going to talk about. I mean, we've been bankrupt. I mean, we've been millionaires and we've been bankrupt, and I'll be glad to share that story. But the one thing we've always been passionate about is I tell people, in spite of our financial bankruptcy, we remain relationship rich. Because parenting and our marriage has always been, that's the non-negotiable. Everything else comes second to that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm passionate about right now is this. Of all the businesses we've started, and we started a business that grew to 20 employees, but of all the businesses we've started, this is the first time I'm really starting a business in my passion. And quite honestly, I've always been reluctant to make a living in the marriage, family, and parenting space. Usually that's reserved for ministries, and we are a faith-based business, but we're not a 501c3, we're not nonprofit, we are for-profit. But I guess, Joel, I just always saw those businesses have trouble making it. And so I chose what I thought was things that were more financially lucrative, but I was always very passionate about this. So I'm excited now that Teresa and I, this is our first time in 30 years of marriage where now our business and our passion is actually the same thing. And we are endeavoring to see if we can actually merge the two and earn a living talking, teaching, training, and doing everything on marriage and family and parenting.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that summary. And I can't wait to get into all those experiences that you've had and really get down to where you are now with regards to the passion, right? Because you've had a lot of experiences with other ventures, but it sounds like you guys have now figured out where your passion truly lies, and will be taking that, well, you've taken it full time into a business. So we'll definitely get into that. But just like your show and what you guys talk about, and this is Startup Dad Headquarters, we want to first start with the family. And the quote I like to use to kick this off is, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." Would you agree, Jim?
Oh, I agree 1,000%. And I haven't used that exact quote, but I say that to people all the time.
Nice, nice. So now, as a, we'll be diving into your story in terms of your early stages of your entrepreneur journey. But your kids are already they're out of the home. But while you were building your businesses, while you were doing everything that you guys were doing, and even today with your children being in 4 different time zones, how are you balancing the family with everything you have going on?
Well, early on, wow, that's a great question. This interview could last all day. I know we don't have but a few minutes, so I'll try to condense my story. Let me just say this. By the grace of God, early on, here's some things I did. So while I'm dating, I was the one of 3 children of 2 school teachers, and my parents worked multiple jobs. We grew up on a farm. They taught school. They did adult education. They did a million different things. Here's what I learned growing up. I do not want my wife to work outside the home. I want to marry somebody who's going to be a homemaker. Now, obviously, I'm not against wives working outside the home. That's kind of a personal decision per family. So for me, while I'm dating, I'm telling my wife this is what I want to do. Now, why is that the case? Because I came to the conclusion early on, it's going to be difficult for me just how I'm built. I tend to focus in on stuff, and you know how one of your strengths can also be one of your weaknesses?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard that whole idea, but I tend to have a laser-like focus. I know in the bio I sent you, I mentioned my college football career, where I literally tore a medial collateral in the second quarter of a game, but played the whole game. Mm-hmm. And it's just a laser-like focus to get the job done. And so, Joel, what I knew about myself, hey, Jim, it's going to be difficult for you to balance all this. So one of the ways that we did it is Teresa was a stay-at-home mom. Now, we have 4 children. We started out with 2. Our first 2 were twins. So as a pretty quickly family of 4, I was able to balance that because Teresa's primary responsibility, now obviously Teresa's gone on to get her master's. She's a marriage and family therapist. She runs a counseling center. But in those early days, we decided for our family that mom was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was going to go off to slay the dragons. Now, that doesn't release me from my responsibility. And so I want dads to understand their job doesn't end when they get back home. But one way we decided to try to balance this is that both of us were not working outside the home. And we can talk later. I know this is Startup Dad, but I actually started a business for my wife where that business grew, where at one point she was out earning me working from home. So I just want to encourage dads, hey, we need the money, Jim, we need the health insurance, whatever. But there are ways where, as a leader, it's our job to have the big picture vision, share that with our wife, and come shoulder to shoulder to make it happen. And that was one way we were able to balance the 2. I'm not sure if we were both working full time at that early age that we would have been successful, because I probably did a really poor job because I was really focused, outside the home in those early years, probably more than I should have been.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you were very strategic in knowing that here's my weakness, here's my strength, which is also a weakness. And I have to make sure that the person who I'm going to get on board with, marry, understands that and can balance and be the rock or be the strength to my weakness. So
again, I just want to caution dads, I didn't, and they don't want to abdicate their responsibility.
Right.
Just because they're working outside and mom's a stay-at-home mom, that doesn't mean that they come home and shut the day off, watch TV. You know what I mean? You know,
Right.
you got to go to work when you get home. But
Right.
but it was a heck of a lot easier. And I'll tell you this, Joel, in terms of this has turned into more of a marriage and family thing. But there were times like I would say to my wife, because I would say to my wife, hey, you've been home with the kids 3 weeks, 4 weeks in a row. I'm going to take off, stay home today. You go out. And if you do that, you get a really good appreciation for just how hard that job is.
Right.
You know, so when people say, so your wife doesn't work, I say, hey, that's just a stupid, that's a stupid question. What do you mean my wife works like a dog? I mean, but anyway, that's a whole nother show.
Right. Awesome. So in terms of talking about, you talk about when you got home, you still had to, you had some responsibilities. Can you tell us what was one of the chores that you did that would not traditionally be considered a man chore?
Well, now I know some of the greatest chefs in the world are cooks. The greatest chefs in the world are cooks, or cooks are men, is what I'm trying to say. But I guess it's fair to say that most men wouldn't traditionally think of cooking as a man's job. But in our home, now again, not those early years as Teresa was a stay-at-home mom, but as things evolved, I probably became, especially as I started working outside the home, working from home, I became the primary person cooking the meals. I like to cook. I grew up on a farm doing all the cooking. I'm a good cook. So that's probably something that's a little, Teresa and I used to argue about who got to cook, not who had to cook, but who got to cook. She would say, I was thinking about cooking this. I said, no, I was thinking about cooking this. I mean, so we used to actually argue about who was going to get to cook. So
now, did you guys argue on who was going to get to cook because you knew the person who didn't cook was going to be cleaning up?
No, now, and I don't want to give guys bad examples because we do share the chores, but one little secret is, I mean, the dishes part I don't do. Now that's pretty much, a couple of things. I don't iron, I wash, I dry. I don't iron, and I'll put stuff in the dishwasher. So that's kind of an agreement. Even the kids, when they're all home, they can tell, they come in the kitchen, oh, daddy's cooking. Because like Teresa washes as she goes, whereas I cook and put stuff to the side so somebody else can do it. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So Jim, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take us back, being Startup Dad headquarters, take us back to the early stages of your entrepreneur journey.
When we got married in 1985, we immediately started a business called Capture the Moment, where we were going to video weddings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, from the very onset of our marriage, we started a business. Now, granted, understand, I grew up working in the family business. We had a restaurant, we had the farm, we had the restaurant, we had, I cut and sold firewood. So as a child, I was probably started in business when I was 12, cutting yards. Moved up to the firewood business, almost cut my toe off with a chainsaw. That's a whole nother story. But moved up to selling firewood. So it was just understood, I'm going to be in business for myself. Now, the key that I always wondered until I actually did it was, can I make this full time instead of just a side hustle? So when we got married, we started the video, back then it was a big bulky VH with the camera, you put the VHS tape in, you remember? Oh, yeah. You don't remember, Joel, you probably don't remember, but
I remember.
Okay. But so we started out, with that business. That was probably the first thing we did. And we had a number of tremendous failures. The fortunate thing for us about working a job and later on, even when I had my own business, I constantly look for little other things to do. The great thing about it is those things allowed me to fund things. But that was the first thing we did, which didn't turn into anything that really big. The next thing we did was we opened a business placing vending machines at various locations. That was a little pocket change, but not anything really, really big. We opened a hair salon. That was our biggest venture. There was probably about $100,000 investment to open a hair salon that lasted about 2 years. That didn't make it, but it was a huge project. That didn't make it. We didn't really probably strike it big until we actually found something related to what I was doing. So what I was doing was employee benefits consulting. That was the business that I had. So, but there were a lot of contractual restrictions I had with my franchisor. So I set Teresa up in a similar business, and that's when things took off, where she literally surpassed what I was doing in working from the home in her business. But the first thing we did was that capture the moment.
Okay. Now, when do the kids start to come into the picture here?
Okay. So of course, we had children our first year of marriage. So, they're doing the daycare thing. We're living in Memphis, Tennessee. So when we moved to Jackson, Mississippi, at that point, Teresa's a stay-at-home mom, but I need her to help in the business. So at that point, we took kids to daycare, and I can remember like it was yesterday, whether we were doing mailings or whatever we were doing, we would literally drop the kids off at daycare in the morning, 2 at that time, go to the office, work all day, go pick the kids up, come back to the office if we had a project to do. So it was literally work and family. This is probably not a good thing. There wasn't much of a separation in those early years, because trying to get the business off the ground, I mean, we moved from Memphis to Jackson to open a new area. I mean, so there was no presence here. I mean, so we had to do, literally from the ground up. So at that point, the kids, and they even remember those stories now. They're great stories to tell now as we all sit around about going in the office and helping and licking envelopes and sorting. They were taught how to do the bulk mail sorting. So the kids have always been involved. And then I'll tell you this, now I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I learned a lot of things growing up on the farm that I wanted to instill in my kids. So later on, when we moved out on a little mini farm, about 7 acres, we would do things. It's funny how you go back to your roots. So I had a garden where we would plant and grow stuff. We would go out in the woods and cut firewood. And again, now this was all about teaching the kids a lesson, because we didn't at that point need the extra money, but we would literally cut the firewood to teach them a lesson, put it in the back of our truck, go sit at the corner of a service station and wait. I don't know if you've seen people do that. I don't know if that happens much in Massachusetts, but but it was really, really hard work. And like my wife used to say, you spent $500 to grow vegetables we could have bought for 100. I mean, but it was all about teaching a lesson. So, and now here's the funny thing, Joel. Right now, of our 4 children, two of them for sure are working full-time jobs. One is in business completely for himself. One works kind of for, she has a little consulting business and she works part-time as a consultant for people, but all of our kids in some form or fashion are actually in their own business right now.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely have that. Actually, it's they don't stand at the convenience store, but the guy, it's actually very convenient for us. He has like this, I don't even know what you call it. It's like not a barrel, but he kind of customized this storage unit where
okay.
You see him and his kids, they cut the wood, they bring it up, and he puts it into these little, each storage unit has its own little size. And it's like, I think it's like $10 for a load or something like that. Okay. But yeah, I see people doing that as well. So that's awesome that you were able to do that with the kids, and it seems like it definitely paid off, right? So you had a vision on how to kind of, and that's I'm glad that you brought that up, because as a startup dad, you're trying to figure out, how do I teach my children that you don't have to necessarily go and work for someone. You could actually build something on your own, and it is possible. And how do you instill that at a very young age to teach them those work ethics? And those work ethics is going to apply whether they go work for someone or they applying it to their own business or both, right? Kind of side hustling. So yeah, definitely.
Another thing I would do, and here's what's great about our youngest child's 23 now. So we've got 23, 24, they're 16 months apart. Then we got the twins that are soon to be 30. Here's the great thing about our conversations now are very adult-like. And so it's hilarious to hear them tell these stories. Here's another thing that I used to do with the kids. So at the height of the employee benefits consulting business, I had offices in Shreveport, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Jackson, Mississippi. So I had 4 offices. So when the summer was out, each week or some weeks, I would take a different child with me. Let's say I went to New Orleans to work in that office. I'd take child number 1 with me. I went to Baton Rouge and next week I take tile number 2. So they would literally just mirror me, walk in the office with me, stay in the hotel, life on the road. But those stories taught really, really valuable lessons, because you got the commuting time where we're talking, then you got the opportunity to ask questions, because like in New Orleans, for example, my office was in like a 30-story building. And for a 10-year-old child, Dad, is this your building? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, my dad's incredible. So okay, no, I've written the space. So what does that mean? Okay, here's how. I mean, tremendous lessons.
Right.
Tremendous lessons.
Right. Nice. Awesome. So can you share with us, because we can't cover all your you have a breadth of knowledge. You've been doing entrepreneurship for quite some time. We definitely want to move forward to family the matters, what you guys are currently doing right now with the podcast and the business. But if you had to kind of summarize for us, how do you go about identifying your businesses that you've worked on and building them and stuff like that? How do you go about doing that? And I guess you could use your current venture as an example.
Well, what we primarily try to do, and our current business is actually something a little bit different, because let me try to answer a question like this. What we try to do is really identify a need and fill it. I'm a marketing major. My undergraduate degrees in marketing, and that's what I was basically taught. Find a need and fill it. So that's kind of what I've tried to do, is look for opportunities, whether it was the videography business, the hair salon. I mean, I won't go into all that, but there were very specific reasons why we chose those businesses. Now, what we're doing now, this is the challenge with what we're doing now. As you know, there's a tremendous need to teach and train, and for people to be taught and trained on marriage, family, and parenting. But my experience here in this part of the country, I don't know if it's any different there, is people, they don't value it the same. They're hesitant to pay for it, or they don't want to pay very much for it. So that's been the challenge. I mean, just think about it, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube show or a course, anything about a real estate course, how you can become a millionaire, or whatever, people typically buy that. But the same course, how to be a great dad, it's the same price as a real estate course, $797. People think intuitively, which is not true, by the way, oh, I think I know how to be a great dad. Why would I pay somebody to teach me? So what we're doing now, as I mentioned to you earlier, is something I'm very passionate about, but I'm just a little, well, historically, I've been a little bit uncomfortable moving into this space full time, because I'm not sure, I'm concerned about people's reluctance to pay for the knowledge.
Yeah. So what have you done? So I guess in the early stages of it, how did you kind of validate? There's definitely a need, right? There's definitely a need, and I see the struggle with people paying for. You don't sometimes you don't know what you don't know, I guess.
Right.
And you figure, if I grew up in a, so for example, I was fortunate. I grew up with my mom and my dad. So I say, well, I have both parents to look at as examples, and I'm going to be a dad. I know that there's certain things about my dad that I didn't like. I'm going to make sure I don't do those things. And then there's certain things about my dad that I did like, and I'm going to do those things and more. So I'm going to take those two things, combine them, and this is going to be, oh, I'm a good dad. But what you're saying is that there's so much more to it than what you've seen, right, or what you've experienced. Right. And then there's the individuals that didn't have their dad, right? So they only had their mom, or vice versa. So they're missing an entire piece.
That's exactly right.
Of the picture of being, like my wife, for example. My wife didn't have a dad in the picture. So the marriage piece, in terms of what are the conversations like between a husband and a wife? How do you do bills? How do you? Right. Her mom was doing everything, and that piece is definitely missing. So how did you validate that?
Okay.
There's a need, but how did you validate it? And then how are you going to?
Okay. Well, now this is maybe not the answer you're looking for, but this is how I ended up here. always felt like, you know how people talk about what they are called to do, made to do, created to do. So I've always felt like this was a calling, but unwilling to take the risk, if you will, and which is crazy because I've taken tremendous risk. But here's what happened. We started that real estate investment firm, took our life savings. Our first purchase was to buy a block of 70 houses. I mean, so we literally bought 70 houses, hired staff, grew to 20 people. We're rocking and rolling. Long story short, the fast forward version is we lost everything. When the real estate market crashed around 2009 or so, 2008, it just became possible for people to get financing. I'd bought a lot of houses on really expensive money because I was selling them like that. But all of a sudden, the same guy who could buy, these were investors mostly, the same guy who could buy 5 houses, and I bought 5 houses to sell them, now that same guy couldn't get approved to buy a house. So to answer your question, as I went bankrupt, lost the house I lived in. So I tell people I went from owning over 100 properties at any given time to losing my own personal house. Had cars repossessed. And don't get me wrong, Joe, we weren't spending crazy money. I mean, it wasn't like we were buying stuff we couldn't afford, but we literally went to zero because we had no source of income. So when you're at rock bottom, this is really answer your question. And I don't know if there are probably some dads that can identify. Our last year at our height of the insurance business, that 2003, we made $500,000 that year. And that was back when, now I know in Boston, Joel, you know, and in Massachusetts, that's not a lot of money, but we're in Mississippi, you know, we're just little country folks. So $500,000 here is a pretty doggone good living.
Right.
So at $500,000, I'm not trying to go into this ministry related business teaching people how to be a dad. You know, I mean, hey, I'll go and speak on occasion, you know, and I wouldn't even want to be paid. Hey, I'm just, you know, hey, don't worry about it.
Right.
But when you go to zero, see, now all of a sudden you can say the validation is, well, I know I can make $1 doing this. You know, now that was a whole lot less than $500,000, but at zero, $50 starts to look pretty good.
Right.
So really, the answer to your question is, at rock bottom, and this is a sad way of saying it maybe, but at that point I could afford to start over, had to start over, really no choice. And I said, I'm going to start over doing something I really, really want to do. So that's how this came about.
Now, how was the so you've had tremendous success with your wife, right? And you had tremendous failure. And you have the kids that the kids are getting older. And then this crash occurs. So this is 2008. So I'm assuming kids are in college, high school timeframe, right?
Right. I see where you're going. Great question.
Okay. So how did you decide? How did the conversation between your wife go with regards to now we're going to start another business as opposed to, hey, we got to just go get it?
Okay. Here's the thing. My wife is super, because this is what happens. And I mean, this part of the story is not a great motivational part, because here's the thing, Joel, when you've lost everything, my wife came to me once before our house was foreclosed on, and she said, what are we going to do? And the truth of the matter is, I didn't answer her, because this is what I was thinking. I don't know what we're going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was so devastating. I just started working full-time at our church with marriage and family. I mean, so I'm working full-time. I'm being paid $36,000 a year, but I used to make in a month, you know, but I was at zero, right? So I'm glad to have it. But here's the thing. My wife kept saying to me, I've never seen you like this. I've never seen you at any time in our marriage where you haven't had some idea or project that you're working on. You know, from the day we got married, we started a business. I've never seen you at this point. It's 2, 3, 4 years, you know, in, and I'm not working on anything. She said, I can't believe what I'm seeing. But here's the thing, Joel, that loss was so devastating. There was a point in my life where I said, I just keep my head down, work here the rest of my life. I guess it's over. You know what I mean? I mean, because the loss was just that devastating. So to answer your question, Teresa was the one that kept encouraging me. Hey, look, find something else to do. Think about something else. You know, you can do more than this. You're working beneath your potential here. And so that's she actually kept encouraging me to do something, and that's how kind of where we started with where we are now, because all the stuff we were doing, we were basically giving it away. So this was a really big challenge for us. How do we find something in this space that we can really sell? Because I'm speaking, but not enough to make a living. And most of the time I'm speaking for free, because whatever. So how can I turn that into a business? How can I turn our teaching and training? So it starts with Teresa goes back, we both go back to school. We go to seminary to work on a master's in marriage and family therapy. I actually didn't finish. I left after that first semester, but Teresa finishes. Then there's a whole 2-year, 3,500-hour residency like a doctor. That's a whole other story before you can be in private practice. But anyway, she finishes all that, and she opens up a practice where we can send people, we're licensed, and we can charge them for counseling. Then I start thinking, how can we start creating a business around the lifestyle that we want? And that leads us to where we are now. I'm sorry, that was Family Matters first. Now, that was strictly a in-person counseling business.
Right.
So now we have rebranded, if you will. The new brand is relationshipsuccessuniversity.com, and that's where we've tried to take everything we would do in person and put it online. So at relationshipsuccessuniversity.com, there are literally 9,000 videos dealing with how to be a great dad, and these are not obviously videos we've done, but the leading speakers in that space. There are webinars that we do where we might sense that our audience has a really urgent need to talk about how to deal with conflict in their marriage, how to deal with raising teens. So hey, next week we're going to do a webinar on that. You can attend live. So that's kind of how we grew into, from that brick and mortar type business where depending on somebody being there, to now in the early stages of coming up with a virtual digital platform to expand what we're doing here in this little niche in Jackson, Mississippi, all across the world.
Nice. Now, my question to you, what would your advice be to a dad who doesn't have a Teresa, to kind of motivate him and say, hey, you're living below your potential? What would you say if you didn't have her? Do you think you were going to ever get out of that hump, or how would you?
That's a great question. I think maybe, I'd like to think maybe I would have eventually have broken out of that deep funk that I was in. But okay, back to your question. So if you don't have a Teresa, then I would say that person it would be great if they had a trusted mentor friend. Now that's a whole different thing. I do a lot of stuff just for me, and we talk about what it means to be a friend. And a friend's not a back patting, hey, you're a great guy. A friend is a guy. This is what I tell my friends, which I only have 2 or 3 what I call friends. I say, if this friendship is going to work, here's how it's got to work. I've got to be able to look you in the eye and say, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard anybody say. Don't do it. And you've got to be able to do me the same way. If we're going to have a friendship, this is how this is going to work. It's not we're all about telling each other how great we are. It's about we're also willing to correct each other. So that person who doesn't have a Teresa needs to find a great accountability partner. Maybe somebody it would be great if it's somebody who's been where they're trying to go. But even if it's not, even if you're at the same point in your career, somebody who's that encourager for you. So if you don't have that person, I find a great podcast like this one that you can hear. Because to me, if somebody else has done it, that should encourage you that there's a possibility that you can do it.
Yeah. Okay,
so if you can't find that person, I would find people that you don't know personally, whether it's Startup Dad, the podcast, it's somebody else out there in this space that you respect, and use that person as a source and a resource.
Nice, thank you. So now let's talk about relationship success. Is it relationshipsuccess.com, or I missed? Relationshipsuccessuniversity.com.
I know that's kind of a long URL. I'm actually thinking about going to some different things, but I wanted, the whole model is like, this is what they came about, or how they came about. The average couple spends $25,200 on a wedding and about 250 hours planning. That same couple will spend less than $100 in less than 2 hours on their marriage. So there's a lot more focus on the ceremony than the actual matrimony. And still in this country, wedding ceremonies are less than a day for the most part. And the wedding, and the marriage is designed to last a lifetime. So when we came up with the university format, it's like, we're going to take you through a curriculum, start to finish, where you're going to go from, I don't know what I'm doing, to super dad. And of course, we talk about moms, we talk about husbands, we talk about wives. It's the whole family thing, but it's a very intentional approach to taking somebody from, I don't know what I'm doing, and I would argue that we all start like that, to some degree, to this is how I can really learn to be, and here's what we talk about first. First, be a great man, okay? Second, you want to be a great husband. And then as important as the dad is, it's actually third on my list. And we've done a dozen shows about dealing with children and parenting and conflict and so forth. But that's what we're trying to do with Relationship Success University, is much like going to college. You are going to be trained how to be a dad, a wife, a husband, a father, a parent, etc.
Nice. Now, how did you go about, so now you're taking this, family matters first, right? Which was very hands-on, face-to-face. And then now you're turning that to Relationship Success University, which is more online. How did you go about, give us some of the steps, like the intricate steps on how you went, because you're going from analog to digital, right? So how did you set that up to get rocking? Because I imagine there's a dad listening who has something that is very much face-to-face right now, and he wants to build something that's a little bit more online, or at least add some online components to what he's doing.
Well, for us, the hard part was coming up with the content. So the first thing we did to have content is we started trying to preserve everything we did, because we're doing something in this space 5, 6, 7 times a week. Okay, so whether it's an individual session with another couple, they will consent to us videoing, or whether it's me speaking at ABC company that I'm going to video. It was just like reality TV, following us around and doing what we normally do, but preserving it. Okay, now, and I'm not sure how much time we have, but I want to talk about the book. For example, our book's coming out in a few days, and so by the time your listeners hear this, the book will be available. But let me just tell you how the book came about. So we were using a tremendous tool, probably for 15 years, that we would do what we call with or an engaged couple or a married couple, an intensive, where Teresa and I would sit down with them 6 to 9 p.m. on Friday, 9 to 5 all day Saturday. It's like cramming in 12 sessions, because instead of coming once a week into one weekend. And the book we were using literally went out of print. So we looked around to find another book, could not find anything we liked at all. So we decided to write our own book. And again, we weren't not to sell a book, to have to use in our sessions.
Right.
So we started using the book. We're using the book 3, 4, 5 years, and people are going like, "Oh my gosh, where can I get this book?" Well, here, we make them a copy. It's in a 3-ring binder. We give it to them. I mean, we don't have this book, and we just started hearing this over and over again, and we started thinking, man, this is pretty good stuff. And so then what would happen? We said we need to get it ready, to where we can sell. Back to what you and I are talking about. So over a 4 or 5 year period of using this, we would come back home from a session and we would say, you know what, there were some questions raised that the book doesn't address. Let's add it. Hey, there's some stuff that's no longer relevant. Let's delete it. So the book kept evolving over 4 or 5 years in real time, because we were working with real couples. And so now that's a product. Okay, the whole webinars, here's the great thing I like about this business is because we're operating in real time. So we see people every week. We hear emails, phone calls, counseling center appointments. We, through dozens of people a week, see what's really happening out there. And now we can take, not that you're struggling with the same thing, but now we can take that and package it up in a way where it can apply to the masses. So it's really like everything we do at Family Matters First, which we still have, by the way, provides the ideas and the content and the pathway to relationshipsuccessuniversity.com. So it's stuff that, it's not like we're guessing, like, what are people struggling with? We see what they're struggling with because we see them in the counseling center every day.
Nice. So now you've figured out how to get the content for your to build out this platform, and then you just website, membership site. How does it work exactly?
Okay, good question. It's a membership site. And this is the thing about the membership site, and back to monetizing it. So what we're charging, okay, Netflix is around $9 a month. Okay, what we're charging right now, I'm not sure how long we're going to continue this, is $17 a month. It's nowhere near what we should be charging for the content, but we have to balance. It's a interesting balancing act. What's it worth? What's it costing to deliver? What's it costing us to deliver it? And what are people willing to pay? And I know that a lot of experts say don't do that, charge what it's worth. But back to what I just told you earlier, people are paid $9 a month for Netflix, you know, and this is a Netflix-like approach, is why I use that analogy. But to pay $47 a month, which is what this is probably worth, we just weren't sure that price point would attract the right audience. So we've actually been testing it at $17 a month. And again, it's approaching 10,000 videos. I'm not sure, I mean, I'm sure Netflix has, you know, a lot more than that. But these are all videos in this little niche. So much like the library, you can go in there and say, I want to look at a video on being a great dad. And by the way, I know we're going to talk about a book later, but one of the greatest books I've ever read, this is not the one I'm going to recommend, but Robert Lewis wrote a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight that I think every dad needs to read. Now that book is specifically for raising boys, you know, so that's the only little thing, but a father with boys has got to read Raising a Modern Day Knight. So for example, that book through about 10 video lessons is in the library. Okay, then Teresa and I have content that's in the library. All the big names that Tony Dungy, Uncommon Life, Uncommon Marriage, his video series is in the library. Gary Chapman, Gary Smalley, I mean, Tony Evans, you know, everybody's in the library that works in this space. So it's you know, we came up with that price point, $17 a month per family. You know, there are 400, 500, 600 animated videos just for kids. I mean, it's a great tool. iPad, you can watch it on your iPad, you know, your tablet, wherever, it's on the go with you, 24/7. So that was our first. That's our first attempt to digitally monetize a product that we thought could really make a difference, you know, and also allow us to earn an income to do this full time.
Yeah, awesome. So now, as we're moving in and we're starting to wrap up here, you know, we've talked about failures earlier in the show. What is one of the doubts that you currently have with Relationship Success University? Sorry, what is one of the doubts that you currently have with this business venture, and how do you overcome those doubts?
Let me tell you why that's such a great question, because this is going to sound crazy to a bunch of dads, but before I had that failure with the real estate business, now I'd had other failures. We had the hair salon that didn't work. But I never went into a venture, never, ever, ever, with even the idea in my mind this would not work. Okay, so the reason the question you're asking is so important now, I don't have a history of entering anything with any doubt. You know, I just never crossed my mind. Sure, it's going to work. You know, but what I found that happens is after that tremendous failure, I mean, when we lost our personal house, I mean, if you haven't been through that, that's devastating. You know, after going through that, I found myself struggling with that here at this age. I didn't struggle with this at 22. You know what I mean? When you're young and I've never struggled with this, but I do struggle with the doubt now. And I just have to remind myself, here's what I do. In part, you know, number one, we believe that what we do, we have been called by God to do this. So this is bigger than us. This is not something that I would have thought up myself. So number one, I focus on the whole big picture. Hey, Jim, this is not something you thought up and made up. It's bigger than you. There's a bigger calling. Number two, we're really helping people. And then number three, hey, this is what I tell my kids all the time too. You can't control the result. All you can do is control the effort. So don't ever doubt about the effort. Now, you know, just like playing sports, you know, I played football in college. I can't make us win. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm one of 11. You know what I mean? So I can't make us win, but I can control my effort, and then I can hopefully be satisfied with the outcome. So I don't know if that's making sense to answer the question. That's kind of how I deal with doubt, is I just focus on the things I can actually control. And at the end of the day, win or lose, success or failure, I did all I could do.
Right. Awesome. I love that answer. Thank you. And what would you say would be one of the biggest sacrifices that you've had to make as a dad, let's say specifically more from a dad standpoint, along your journey?
Wow. You know, I believe this is my answer, which I don't know if this is a good answer or not. When it comes to my family, I can't think of many sacrifices I actually made. You know, I don't have the story. I wish I'd gone to more soccer games. You know, I went to every game. You know, I wish I had. I mean, because now here's another thing. I have certain priorities in my life. Now I'm trying to make a gazillion dollars, but not at the sacrifice of this.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put, you know, so I don't have, okay, let me say this. I have a lot of regrets about how things turned out. You know, I filed bankruptcy and lost all of our money in that whole real estate venture. I mean, we lasted for 6 years. I couldn't foresee what was going to happen.
Mhm.
But now, do I regret kind of doing it? Well, no, I think it was a good idea. You know, so I don't have, honestly, a lot of, give me some examples of maybe some other answers you can help me think, because off the top of my head, I can't think of a lot of sacrifices I've made
Yeah.
to,
You know,
especially with the family.
yeah, you know, typically I ask that question with regards to what are the sacrifices you've made to become an entrepreneur, not necessarily from the fatherhood standpoint, but because you've been an entrepreneur for so long, I asked you more specifically from a fatherhood side.
Okay, I got you.
But yeah, typically it'd be like, you know, giving up television.
Oh, okay.
You know, but
Now you help me. Now
yeah,
here's why it's difficult for me to answer this question. I just thought about something that a really good friend of mine says all the time to me, and I never really think about it, but it's really making sense as you ask this question. He says to me, Jim, you're the only guy I know who what most people consider work, you consider fun. So the reason I now see your question better, I guess I never see it as a sacrifice. What I love to sit here and come up with ideas and work on stuff. So really what most people maybe would see is, okay, so I didn't get to watch, okay, what is this? Whatever month we're in, I haven't seen a single NBA playoff game, not one. But I don't consider that a sacrifice because I'm back here, you know, it's like I forget I'm working. Does that make sense?
yeah.
You know, so now I understand what you're asking better. You know, there's a lot of things I've done, missed TV, not hung out with friends, not done a lot of stuff. But until you just explained the question better, I never thought of it as a sacrifice. so that's pretty interesting. Yeah. But now I see what you're saying.
Right.
So yeah, there's certain exchanges and trade-offs I made, but I never saw me as really having to sacrifice, because what I'm working on in my mind is bigger and better and more important than what I traded to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, awesome. And Jim, share with us like where we have a good sense of where you are right now with the business. What is your vision? Like, what is your overarching vision with the business?
Okay. Wow. I could talk a long time. I'll just be really quick. Okay. So number one, we want our book to be the go-to tool. Well, actually, let me answer it like this. We think on the driving force of a movement to reform and transform the way marriage and family is done in this country. So now everything we're going to talk about is a tool, but that's the big thing we want to do. We want to make sure that ideally nobody would get married without pre-marriage coaching. We just did a show, Why Men Won't Ask for Relationship Directions. We would like to live in a world where everybody who's married would reach out for help, whether it's individual counseling or reading a material, listen to a podcast. You know, so there's a whole movement that we're working on to reform and transform the way marriage and family is done. So now to your question, what are the tools that we're using? We love to see that our book sells millions and millions of copies over the next decades and lives long after we're gone. We'd love to have thousands of members at relationshipsuccessuniversity.com, where it's a reservoir, it's a resource, it's a feeding trough for people looking for help on relationships. We think that we are, Joel, gifted. Our practical experience, our personal application, our professional training, we think makes us uniquely qualified to deliver this information. So we'd like to have it where we're doing digitally, we're doing webinars, and we're doing, you know, things via our membership site. We'd like to have it where, because the kids are gone now, where one weekend we're speaking in Denver, the next weekend in Boston, the next weekend in Detroit, where we're doing seminars where we're reaching hundreds. And we went to our first marriage and family seminar probably 29 years ago. It changed our life. So we'd like to be impacting couples. And by the way, you know, now obviously the information that we share goes across all ethnic lines and all cultural barriers, but there aren't very many platform speakers in this space, African-American platform speakers. And so we aren't saying we're the only people suited to do it. We'd like to be the go-to people. And again, we aren't just targeting any particular ethnic group, but we'd like to be the go-to people in this space when it comes to marriage and family. So that's our big goal. So we're changing the way marriage and family is done. So how are we doing it? We got the book, we got the membership site, we got the speaking, we got the podcast, we got individual counseling, we got webinars. So all those things are working together to reform and transform the way marriage and family is done in this country.
Awesome. That's a beautiful, beautiful vision. And it sounds like you guys have it nailed down to exactly what you want to do. And I know you're gonna, you know, and that's, you know, if I take a second to talk about Startup Dad Headquarters, you know, I'm talking about entrepreneurship and I'm talking about fatherhood, but at the core of it, my vision is that, you know, we all know, we've all heard the statistics about dads who, you know, they say Mondays are when most heart attacks occur, because people are going to jobs that they just don't like, that they just hate. If you're going to a job that you hate, you spend 8 hours there, you come home, you're miserable, you're upset, you're not satisfied with your life. Well, how is that going to apply to your family, right? How is that going to apply with your conversations with your wife and the conversations with your children? So through, you know, one of the kind of like missions of Startup Dad Headquarters is, hey, how do you find the goal? How do you find the purpose of what you want to do? How do you go and pursue that, right? You have an idea of what you want to do. How do you go pursue that while still providing for your family, and then creating the business that's going to make you happy? And when you're happier, your family's happier, your kids are happier, everybody's happier. So I love the mission that you guys have going on. And like you said at the beginning, at the top of the show, it aligns perfectly with Startup Dad Headquarters. So we're now entering the final segment of the show. We only have a few more minutes, so I'm gonna, this is the rapid fire handyman segment. This is where I quickly ask you a couple of questions, and then you reach into your toolbox, and then you give us some of your quick tips and tools that you use on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Ready to rock? All right. So what is your #1 time management hacker tool?
You know, I thought about that, and it's I don't have a specific app or program to mention, but it's a calendar, and of course I just use a Google Calendar. But for me, what has really changed what I do is having an online scheduling tool and a reminder, because because really what I need is a virtual assistant, but since I haven't made that step yet, doing everything myself, for me, my #1 time management tool, and whether it's Calendly or Schedule Once or whatever you're using, it's some kind of online scheduling and reminder tool. For me, you know, makes my life a whole lot easier.
Nice. What is one way you manage your health?
Oh, okay. Now, you know, I tell you how I can be kind of focused. Okay, so, you know, I'm almost a little OCD. This is how my morning starts. Okay, first, this is for me. So first I start with scripture, prayer, a podcast. Usually it's Adrian Rogers, Rick Warren, Tony Evans, you know, so every morning, prayer, scripture, podcast, gym. Okay, so I'm in the Central Time Zone. Most mornings, like today, by 7:30 Central Time, I've had prayer, scripture, podcast, an hour at the gym, and I'm back in my home office working. So I mean, so how do I do it? It's a priority. You know, I mean, I'm not obsessed. I don't maybe I am. I'm not, you know, as an old former college athlete, I love working out. So for me, it's not, you know, like, and right now I'm in two-a-days. So right now I'm at gym in the morning and usually a 15 to 20 bike ride in the evenings. So for me, you know, growing up as a little boy, that's part of my DNA. So I don't even consider that, like we were talking about the sacrifices you make. Going to the gym and my health is so much fun for me. So it's really easy to do. Now, the other part for me is also love eating. So that kind of makes this a little challenging for me, because I love to work out, but I love to eat. But for me, in terms of managing my health, the exercise part's easy. And what I'm doing right now, Joe, I'm actually in week 3 of the Daniel fast. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Yes. Yeah.
The Daniel fast. So I've done it 3 or 4 times. I've done it for 4 or 5 months at a time. So I'm, obviously I'm not only doing the gym part, but right now I'm on the Daniel fast, and I'm actually really, really carefully monitoring what I'm eating.
Oh yeah. What's one book that every startup dad should read?
Well, now again, this is going to be more about the dad part than the business part. But every man in America's got to read the book Point Man by Stephen Farrar. Point Man: How a Man Can Lead His Family. Point Man, Stephen Farrar. Every dad in America should read that book.
Awesome. So Jim, this is my final question. It's a little bit long, but it usually produces powerful results. And here it is. On the other side of this broadcast, who is a dad who's been listening in. He's connected with your story. Maybe he's had some successes and failures, just like you have, 4 children, and he's fired up and ready to go. You have just now inspired him to get over his funk and to take the journey once again. What would you say to that dad to inspire him beyond this broadcast? Because as you know, life is going to happen. He's going to shut down his laptop or turn off his phone. And by next week, he'll be right back to the day-to-day minutia of things. How would you inspire that dad to keep pushing forward?
Here's what I found that people do in life. People do, well, this is my opinion. You tell me if you disagree. People do what's really important to them. Okay, so a dad has got to be intentional to make sure what he says is important is that he acts like it's important. So every day, a dad would need to do something on his checklist to move him closer. So this is where he is, way over here to the left. If you can't see, I got my left hand up, and then I'm spreading it apart, and this is where you want to be. So you don't need to jump from A to Z tomorrow, but tomorrow you want to move to B, the next day to C. So what that dad would need to do is lay out, here's a plan of action. This is where I am. Yeah, you ever heard this question asked, do you know how to know what you really want out of life? I'm not doing the quote right, but it's something like, how does a person know what they want out of life and how to get it? Have you ever heard? I'm kind of messing it up, but if I could do it right, it would be like, the question is, how do you know how to get what you want out of life and how to get it? Something like that. And the answer is, step 1 is know what you really want. And then step 2 is be willing to take actionable steps on a regular basis to move you closer. So what I would say to that dad is, don't try to go out tomorrow and be Google tomorrow. Now go out tomorrow and start Google, and maybe in 10 years you are Google. Of course, enjoy the ride, but every day just do something. And that's what I see people do. It's like you said, you get distracted by life. Life happens. And so for just like we're talking about, Joel, so tomorrow, let's map out the day. I'm going to get up an hour earlier. I'm going to do something different to work on my dream. Now I've got to make a living. So I know my job or wherever your situation is, but I'm going to take some time tomorrow. I'm going to make sure tomorrow, let's just start with this. I'm going to devote 30 minutes to me, to what I really want to do. A month from now, it's 45 minutes. 3 months from now, it's an hour. But every day, I'm going to take some intentional time to help me move further toward. Because here's what I think most of us do. This is where I am. This is where I'm trying to go. Oh my gosh, it's so huge a space. I can't do it. And you get overwhelmed and you do nothing. But instead, let's take 3 steps. Let's take 5 steps. And a month later, you look back and you're 5 miles down the road. So that's what I would encourage people to do, is just not sit here. And here's the other thing, and obviously I'm a big podcast fan. I got a friend, he'll call me every day with a new podcast. Okay, why are you listening? Okay, what are you doing? Don't call me about anything else you're listening to, because how's it helping you? What have you done? You become a full-time podcast listener. So here's what I said to those guys: do something every day be very intentional, and do something that's going to move you closer to where you actually want to be. That's what I would say to dads.
Awesome. Jim, as we're wrapping up, I almost forgot this part. Where could the Startup Dads find you? How can they connect with you online? And then
Okay, thank you. So obviously relationshipsuccessuniversity.com, that's our go-to site. We've got several sites, but relationshipsuccessuniversity.com. And I really want to see dads get this book. The book is called Preparing for Marriage, but well, wait a minute, Jim, I'm already married. But the subtitle is Preparing for Marriage, What to Do Before and After You Say I Do. And of course, they can find that at preparingformarriagebook.com. Of course, it's on Amazon. They can get it on Amazon, or they can get it at our site, preparingformarriagebook.com. And then with the Relationship Success University site, the podcast, Joel, you mentioned, we started with the Family Matters First podcast that went to #2 in iTunes. And now we've recently rebranded and relaunched the podcast. It's now the old Family Matters First podcast is still in iTunes, but the new shows are all going to the Relationship Success University podcast. And there we're always sharing information, giveaway stuff, resources, so that would be a really good site, a really good source. We'd love to see people, listening in where we're talking about everything from being a dad to being a husband to being, just a great parent, a godly person, so that's an interesting and fun thing that the wife and I do together.
Awesome. And the book, is it like a workbook type thing?
Oh, you know what? Yeah. Okay. Now I'm glad you said that, because now here's the thing. I know a lot of books. Well, I've seen a lot of books that I've been less than impressed with, but this is a 220-page book that we wrote over a 5-year period that's filled with, okay, here's the great thing. So you read chapter 1, right? And it is a workbook. Questions, you can take notes or notes in the margins. But here's the great thing. You read chapter 1, click the link, and then Teresa and I are discussing chapter 1. So it's the first book I've seen in this space that's book, audio file. Now, I know there are a lot of books like this, but I've not seen another marriage and family book. It's book, audio files, their videos, their relationship assessments. There's over $50 worth of, I'm big on assessments. I don't know if Intel, Joel, if you guys did much of that, but I'm huge on assessment, whether it's Myers-Briggs, whether it's Strength Finders, whether it's whatever you go to. So there are over $50 worth of assessments where you can assess yourself as a dad, as a parent. Okay, this is good. We should talk about this earlier. There's an assessment that you take, and depending on your children's age, okay, this is great. They take it. So here's the great thing about it. So you think you are a great dad, so you take it. How well do you listen? I'm a 10. Then your wife and kids take it, and really you're a 5. And so you got like this line where you see where you rank yourself, and ultimately the lines will intersect. But sometimes the dad's line is all the way up the top, and the wife and kids lines are at the bottom. So I almost forgot that. So we got to talk, and I forgot. So that resource is part of the book. So you can assess yourself as a husband, as a wife, as a dad, as a mother, but that tool alone is typically $50 and bought separately, but that comes with the book. So it is a workbook, it's a manual, it's audio files, it's video files, it's assessments. It's, guys, here's again, we tried to find a book. We didn't want to write a book, but we could not find anything we liked. That's why we wrote a book. And Joel, I already put your book in the mail, by the way.
Thank you.
So when you get it, I wish you let me know what you think about it. We're very pleased with how it turned out.
Awesome. Well, Jim, it was great having you on. I'm so happy we were able to finally connect and get you on the show. This episode will be going live June 4th. I'll just say it right now. So it is going to be part of the new Startup Dad 2.0 series, which kicks off June 1st, where we go 5 days a week. And and your episode.
That's a big job. I've done a 5-day-a-week show. That's a big job. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
How's the closed Facebook group going?
The group is going really well. The Facebook group is going really well. It's growing, and I'm not trying to grow it really quickly.
Right.
It's about growing it steadily, getting engagement, and trying to help. I was actually on a phone call with a dad that's in the group right before I got on the call with you, and helping him out through a couple of things. So growing, doing well. So thank you again for coming on the show, and we'll say goodbye.
Hey, thanks so much. Our next book's going to be a book just for men. So I want to come back when we get that one going. I'm working on something just for men.
Absolutely. All right, Jim.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much.
Hey Startup Dads, take the next step right now and download your free guide called 9 Apps Every Startup Dad Should Have in His Toolbox. It's only available at StartupDadHQ.com/free gift. Again, that's StartupDadHQ.com/free gift. So go download it now, and we'll see you next time on Startup Dad HQ.